Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my amazing interviews. Do you know who you are? Can you remember who you are? I mean, who you truly are, and perhaps what you're here for? Are you actually stuck in a world in which you don't really know where you're going and what you're doing? Have you ever ventured outside of your comfort zone, as they say? A classic phrase, isn't it? But maybe that's what we've got to do. Maybe in the solutions for our lives, in our going forward into this world, we need to do that. Well, I'm very pleased to be joined by Rob Barbaloo Joy, I think he said, or Babaloo Joy, it might be. He wants to ask some questions and he wants to offer some solutions. And I think we're going to learn a lot. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on your platform, Richard, and giving me a voice. I'm slightly nervous because I'm usually in your position on the other side of this, and
You run your own show, so yeah, I know what it's like when you're the interviewer being interviewed. It's although I find it actually more relaxing that way because you haven't got to sort of keep thinking of questions and probing. I just let the other person do it, and then I can just wax lyrical. However, the ball is on the other foot, and so you've been a traveller, an adventurer. You're a spiritual person, all those sort of things. And on my journey, I'm sort of following in your footsteps, I suppose, in a way, trying to find out who I am, what my purpose is, and getting out of the comfort zone that we've all been lulled into with convenience and thinking that the progression that we've taken is the correct progression. And I think now some of us are beginning to realize that's been a huge mistake. Is that true? Is that a fair representation of who you are and what you do?
yeah, well, absolutely. I wouldn't say anything's a mistake because it's all a learning process, and we need to be kind to ourselves and remember that actually, without the dark, there is no light, and that is always going to be the case.
Right.
So,
Oh, okay.
so there is always going to be growth through darkness, and seeds are planted in darkness, and they need both the darkness and the light to grow.
You
Uh,
sound there like Chauncey Gardner from Being There. Do you remember that film with Peter Sellers, in which it was? I think it was his last film, and he was a gardener, and he talked about gardening, everybody didn't realise that he was purely the gardener. They thought he was some genius coming out with these incredible philosophical points, and so as you say there, and it's quite true. Seeds are planted in darkness. Yeah, no, the analogy just suddenly jumped into my mind. I thought, yeah, how brilliant that is.
I love Peter Sellers, but I don't think I'm familiar with that film, so I'll
Oh,
definitely.
it's so different to his other work, and I think in some ways it was one of his great roles.
Awesome. I'll definitely check it out because yeah, he,
Yeah.
he was fantastic. What a beautiful soul he was. And that's the point as well of a lot of what I want to talk about is that he obviously tapped into a lot of who he was and was able to share that because it's a gift to the world.
Right.
And everybody that I have ever met in my life has that possibility to give something of incredible value, real, true, tangible wealth, which is not ownership, because really when we die, we don't take any of the material possessions with us. You could say we take our body with us. That's probably the greatest instrument we'll ever own.
Or our soul, because our body ends up,
Yeah, our body
in
ends up.
in a box or burnt or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. But we die in it, and then
Yes.
the soul is released, if you like. But yeah, in many ways, I think that a lot of what's happening now is a process of remembering and a process from dark to light, in that we have given our agency away, our self responsibility away, our power away. And when we do that, we shouldn't be surprised when people take advantage,
Hmm.
um, because it makes it easy for people to do that. We have to set boundaries, just like you do with children.
Yes.
When children aren't born necessarily kind, there are many examples of children that go off the rails because they haven't been taught boundaries, and so they keep pushing the barriers where there are none. And if people are just like, okay, yeah, I'll give you what you want. If you don't do something bad, then you're just reinforcing that they can get what they want without any consequences. So in the world today, I would suggest that what we've done is we've given that agency away, and others that really, if you look at history and top-down authoritarian control, it never works in the end. It always ends up revealing itself. The illusions all come out to be seen for everyone to see, because essentially it's not what is. It's not how truth operates in the world or in the universe. What is very hard to mask forever. It's just not possible. So I like to use the analogy of a rubber band. When you pull back all of the veils of illusions, eventually, I don't know if I can do this on the screen properly. Yeah, so like there's a rubber band and you're pulling it back, and eventually it's going to fling in the opposite direction. I would suggest that's already what's happening. Exponentially, people are waking up to the idea that actually, no, I've got to do something. I've got to get outside of my comfort zone. I've got to have courage. I've got to awaken to a deeper sense of self-responsibility for the children that are coming next after me. Because actually, I'm 40 years of age now. I've had a wonderful life.
Now, hang on a minute. 40 is not a full life by any means. It's you only just got going.
Well, yes, and they say life begins at 40, and it's certainly, I'm on your show now, and I'm getting a voice and a platform to share what I've learned and garnered in my life for myself and my own experience. And I don't want at any point soon to be shuffled off this mortal coil, but I wouldn't be regretful in any shape or form. But I think that we have to be really, really just, who are we doing anything for? I mean, the next generation always. And in tribes, I've spent a long time traveling in my life and living with indigenous communities. And we're all indigenous, by the way. I don't want to make any separate. This is another thing. There is no separation. We're all starting to remember who we truly are. That's the point of all of this. But, for the sake of what we're describing, indigenous tribes is the best way I have to make it known who they are. And they all say it in a myriad of ways, but they have a very similar story to tell, which is 7 generations ahead is what, if you're planning on doing something, you have to think, what are the consequences for that generation after us and theirs after them, and so on and so forth. Obviously, that's not possible with a lot of things to think that far in the future. And we ought not think so far in the future, because it's a worrying state, rather than being in the present moment and in here and acting in a way that love does. You just ask yourself moment to moment, what decision would love make? And if you're honest with yourself, and this is another thing, if you say you're going to do something and then you don't do it, then you're not being honest. So all of this coming around to getting outside of your comfort zone, that's where life and growth really begins. And the magic starts to appear to you when you get outside of that, which is the mundane, for want of a better expression, because obviously there's love in comfort as well. It's lovely to have all of this, the soft fluffiness of comfort. But really, yesterday, for example, I was coming back from Wales, and we stopped off at a waterfall, and you have to be really sure underfoot every step you take into the pool to get to the waterfall and to have that wonderful pristine water over your head, which, by the way, has healed already an issue I had with my hair and dandruff. It's just vanished overnight.
Wow.
And this is the sort of thing that nature knows better than any man or any woman or any child will ever know. Nature is a perfect system, and the idea that we can overtake it or conquer it or do better than it is ridiculous. In fact, we should be using biomimicry. There are patterns embedded within nature that are repeated through, the smallest, the micro to the macro. And when we study nature, when we just, and it's like a lot of what you've done a lot in your life, I'm sure, which is just being still and present and observing and listening, and answers will come, because all of nature's gifts are there for us to see when we're not distracted by Black Mirror devices. And I mean, the irony is not lost, right? So we're on one of those right now, having this interview, and yet I implore people to be very selective on what they watch, what they consume, what they're allowing into their energy field, into their reality.
So I think what you're saying is unsubscribe from this channel. No, you're not saying that at all. So let's just pause there for a minute, because there's a lot there to unpack. It seems to me that what you're saying is that we've been on a journey, that the human condition, particularly in the West, in this so-called civilized, sophisticated world, and I think I'm very much in your camp on this, that we have, as you said at the beginning, given away a lot of responsibility, because authority, governments, other people, committees and various things have said, look, we'll do that for you. And we've just said, oh, okay, that's great. Until we've become pretty impotent and unable to stand on our own 2 feet again, because everything is done for us. And we've got the threat of the, whatever, the universal income coming down the pipe, that you don't even have to bother going to work, and you think, well, what's the point of getting up? And so people probably won't get up, and at some point you realize, well, why am I here then? Surely, and of course and I've been saying this on the channel for a long time, the convenience of things has, and to me I noticed it when these television changes first came in, because I used to get up and turn the television over. My dad or my mum might say, put it onto the other channel, and you had to, I'm 20 years older than you, so I remember the days when you had to tune them actually in and all of that, and I thought to myself, when these came in, it was like, oh, you don't even have to get up off the sofa, and I thought, that's a bit lazy, isn't it, because you're not getting any exercise. And of course it's all gone downhill from there on in, and we know the television is a trap in and of itself. So I think that's what you're saying, is a lot of the advances, whilst they appear to be amazing and good, and they are technically, we may be using them too much, that we've forgotten, again, as going back to, to being in nature and part of the planet, or part of life.
Yeah.
And that we've taken ourselves and almost out of it.
Yes, and separated ourselves from that which is us. So,
yes,
there's the idea of being able to just do nothing, and people think, oh, I wish I had a life of simplicity and ease and grace. Like, yeah, all very well and good, but in terms of your soul's growth, in terms of your human growth, in terms of the abilities that we have in regards to potential, it just sits there, doesn't it? If you don't actually take the steps that are necessary to activate that which is embedded within you forever, innately. The wisdom, and this is another thing with children, we are here to guide them, not to make them like us.
Right.
We should be listening more to what they have to say from a very young age, because they haven't gone through the conditioning. They haven't gone through the programming. So actually they are pure. I don't know who did the study. As I said, I'm not an expert, but there are studies out there and someone said that every child is a genius up until the age of 5. After that, it's astonishing how few geniuses remain because of the schooling and how the conditioning and the programming works. to basically create automatons that are ready for the workforce, to keep the system going, to keep the status quo in place.
Yes. It's interesting you said that about children, because if you think the speed that they learn a language from no concept of
Amazing.
what items are,
Yeah.
to the point that they learn a language and they also learn how to use their body and walk and up until 5. It's an amazing an advancement, and their brains are small. And they may not be able to intellectually argue about what's going on in the media world or on the financial markets. No, exactly. That is not a bad thing, and so I get that. And then comes the where they're born into.
Yes, the environment.
The environment, and if it's like with as you said, indigenous people perhaps who have their long traditions and things, and they do things in a different way, and then there's the West and the strange world that we now find ourselves, and the various traps and the slavery and the working for long hours for trinkets that we think that we need.
Well, so you've hit on a note there, which leads me into a few questions for everybody, including myself.
Fire away.
The first one is, when indigenous people that I've stayed with meet someone who's become sick, the first question they will ask, generally in their own unique way, special way, is, when did you stop singing and dancing?
Right.
Because life is to be enjoyed. It's a musical journey. It's not about some destination where you get all of these trinkets and everything else. You're missing the point the whole way along.
Yes. No, and I funny you should say that, because if there's nobody in the house, I often talk to myself and make silly voices and prat about, because why not?
Right. And see, the true nature of reality without blocks and resistances and distortion is literally a fairy tale. It's synchronistic magic. We are magicians with amnesia. But anyway.
And kids are like that, aren't they? Kids do that naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. That's inherently, innately who we are. That's the truth of us.
Yes.
Magicians who are capable of limitless possibility. Consciousness is all there was, all there is, and all there will ever be. But awareness grows with the right guidance. And I just really implore people to listen to a few questions now about what it is that we've done to ourselves. There's no one to blame. And this is the other thing I wanted to point out, is that instead of left or right or up or down, no, there's no one to blame, only ourselves. We've all allowed it to happen. And it's not a bad or a good thing. It's just part of the journey. So we can either suffer it or we can grow through it. And we can either say to ourselves, this is happening to me, or this is happening through me.
Right.
So the first question is, and they all start fairly similarly, in what decently run universe do you put people who profit from your sickness in charge of your health? The second one, in what decently run universe do you put bad news as good news, or sell bad news because it creates customers, and then expect to be told the truth? Why wouldn't it be better to empower and encourage people with feats of brilliance every day, and not focus on the odd terror attack, which, in my humble opinion, when you look into, most of them are constructed and done by the very same people who are claiming to have the solutions. But when you dive into it, essentially it's problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem so that they garner a reaction from the public saying, help, help, you must do something. Only for them to offer their solution, which works for them, but will strip freedoms and liberties and joy away from everybody else, so that they can own it all. If anyone's not seen the movie Ants, I highly recommend it. I mean, it's an animated cartoon, but embedded in it is a lot of what the truth is. And by the way, on that note, forgiveness is key. You have to forgive those that have taken advantage, because it's just like a child that wasn't guided.
Mm.
If we keep blaming, then really we're just affecting ourselves, because everything in nature, in reality, is a reflection of what is out of balance within ourselves. Hard to hear, maybe, but really, this is what, again, back to everything cycles back around. And this is where we need to step outside of our comfort zone so often that actually we understand that the comfort zone is really uncomfortable. And know that we are totally capable of absolute magnificence. And I would suggest that we're moving from a world of service to self, which is what the powers that I would say ought not be anymore have
Yes.
been doing, to service to others. Because the true nature of reality, the true nature of ourselves, is that we are here to give of ourselves to others, to make it easier to deal with the physical experience of life. When we do that, all our needs are catered for. It's the same as when you operate in a kitchen. Leave that space at least as well as you found it, if not better, for the next person. If everyone does that, creates peace and joy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So a couple more questions before really going into the myriad of solutions which are not rigid. One of which is education. What is a true education? We are here to guide children, not to convince them to go into what exists already that we know now isn't working. They are being prepared for a future that has already expired.
Yeah, that's a very strong point.
We can't continue this. It's either extinction or growth. It just won't work. So that for any parent listening, please listen to your children. They're the ones coming in now. They are born with all of the tools, all of the answers innately in their own unique self. You are their guide. You are not their teacher. You are not their master, and you don't own them. And by the way, I'm not a parent, so I know how incredibly difficult and challenging it is to be a parent, because I have lots of friends who are. So I'm not trying to say I know exactly how that works. I know it must be incredibly infuriating and very trickstery, because children are brilliantly smart at picking fishers. They're great fishermen or fisherwomen for fishing in a weakness in the parents, and then they'll go to the other parent and they'll say,
"Oh yes, kids do play parents against each other to get their way, but they're learning. They're learning. It's not necessarily malicious. They just find it's an easy way of achieving what they want.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to that point of you've got to instill discipline, and discipline leads to freedom, especially with the self. We live in a world, we've touched on this already, but we live in a world of instant gratification where we don't have to do anything.
No.
Get what we want. But it doesn't lead to growth. It doesn't lead to happiness. It doesn't lead to joy. It leads to stagnation and miserable circumstances, because there's no... The being that we are is meant to grow exponentially forever, evolve forever. We're not always going to look human, probably either. Everything evolves and changes, and that's the other thing. Change is a constant. People need to know and understand that by trying to keep things the same, all they're doing is limiting their ability to grow. I would say this as well. Right now, I'm in a friend's flat. So for anyone listening that's having a hard time being themselves, please find your tribe. And the only way you're going to do that is by being yourself. So be yourself, and those that really truly love you will find you. You'll find them. But if you pretend to be something you're not, then you will continuously have this repeating cycle, where everything comes back around to tell you, oh, what am I doing? Why is life like this? But when you find people who love you for who you are, you grow, because all of a sudden it's okay. It's okay to have your fears. It's okay to be vulnerable. And as a man growing up in the modern world, you know, where every movie's war and horror and so on and so forth, and we're told we shouldn't cry and everything. I love to cry. I think it's a great release, and it's not a weakness. It's a strength. It's vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a strength. We're not here to be tough. We're here to be gentle and kind, and to grow that. That's the way of evolution. We've surely suffered enough over the generations, over the eons, of the same cycles and patterns of behavior that never work. So when we say that there's an awakening happening, it doesn't mean that there's going to be some sort of violent revolution. Not this time, because we've learned from our mistakes. Finally, I truly believe that. Otherwise, by now, I think we'd already have seen it. It's what the powers that ought not be want, because then they can say, "Oh yeah, see, we've got to bring more police and we've got to stop all." But it's not happening. It's not happening. In fact, all we need to do is turn away from darkness, say no. And the more of us that do it, really, it's so simple. And this is what's very frustrating for people who, like myself, who've sort of not bought into it for a very long time, is that actually when we come together, you know, so not the Darwinist stuff of survival of the fittest, actually, he didn't even really talk about that in his book, The Descent of Man. He talked much more about collaboration than he did competition, and that you know, most of nature actually you'll find does.
Do you know? It's funny you should say that, Rob. I've just been reading about Darwin and the origin of the species, in which it does actually talk about the cooperation of. How the animal kingdom sort of much rather cooperate than be at each other's necks and it killing and all of that. And then the mainstream media, I notice, you know, that sort of David Attenborough seems to focus in on a lot more of the sort of, what would you call it, the worst side of it, the uncooperative, the what you said, that the fittest wins.
Survival of the fittest.
The survival of the fittest.
Claw, you know, natural selection being
exactly
the strongest survives, and
then that's been highlighted into the sort of the corporate world, into the that man has to always conquer and be fighting instead of cooperating. And then I interviewed a chap called Steve who lived during communism in Poland, and just before the Berlin Wall came down, he said there was a period of anarchy, of self-rule, the old proper, and he said everybody just cooperated because they found it so much easier to get on. And, you know, if somebody's fixing the roof, you know, would you like to borrow my ladder? And people just got on, and until, because they weren't paying any tax or anything like that to a government, because the government had collapsed. But the government thought, well, we can't have this. And then they put in martial law and it all went tits up. So I absolutely get it with the fact that actually cooperation is a much more natural state.
Now, there's an important caveat here.
Right.
It's that you cannot comply or cooperate with tyranny.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. Get that.
So we really do need to summon what is inside of us, the courage, when we know that something isn't feeling right. So it's getting in charge of your feelings, your emotional body, not just the mental. We've got four, but mental, physical, emotional, and etherical. And we need to this is another thing for guiding children, teach them about those things, give them that knowledge.
What's etherical?
The energetic.
Right.
So that which we might call intuition or a sixth sense.
Psychic, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Which is again, you know, in my experience, and I can only speak from that, I'm not an expert in anything, as I've stressed, and God forbid anyone becomes one, because really it's an indoctrination into something that isn't real. But you do have a sense of what is right and wrong. It's innate. It's inbuilt within us. You know, when you see something where someone's suffering and you get that lump in the back of your throat,
Mm.
yeah, that's the innate, it's
Yes.
it,
And the movies wouldn't succeed if you didn't have that in you. You know, if you had, and even at the beginning of a film where you don't know the characters and one is being abused in whatever way, you just know that's not right. And already, you know, you don't need to sort of be in with the hero or know that they're a, you know, orphaned child. You just know what's happening is not right. It's, you know, you
yeah,
don't have to
you
be.
feel it. You feel
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, what the system's trying to do all the time is turn us off from our feelings,
Mm.
keep us trapped in one of our bodies, the mental brain, which loses all rational capability in fear.
Yes.
So it's important to know that actually the most important thing that you have, that you will, the only thing that you own, the only thing that you ever need to really look after is your soul.
Yes.
This is the spiritual battle that we're in. And it's only you that can do it. And you know, all of these people are going around now saying that they're a healer. Be very wary when you give your energy over to someone who says they can heal you, because they can't. Only you can heal you. The only role of others is as a facilitator to your healing, but it has to come from you. You cannot give your agency away. This again, everything cycling back. Look, I'm biased because obviously she's my mum, but she is to me an angel. And she said, darling, you do whatever this when I was little, you do whatever you want, so long as you are not intentionally, and this is the thing, intent. And we need to work with intention a lot in these times and envisioning the world that we want to create, because that's how reality is created. That's what the powers that ought not be know. That's how they use us to manifest for them by planting the seeds of fear. We need to plant seeds of beauty and joy. And my darling mother said to me, darling, you do whatever you want, just so long as you're not intentionally harming anyone or anything else. And you'll know when you are, because it's innate.
Yes.
He also says beautiful things like locking doors attracts burglars. And just last night, she said to me she'd happily go to prison over all of this that's going on in the world now. Like
For what purpose though?
oh well,
To go
no,
to prison
so because she's read something about or seen something on the TV or read something somewhere that about energy, and that they're coming after you if you don't have a smart meter installed, so that they'll actually they're threatening. And remember this as well, a lot of it is just threats and intimidation, which backed up.
Yes.
If you stand your ground, they really do back down most of the time, because
I mean, for one thing, if everybody decided they wouldn't want a smart meter, or they wanted to keep their gas boiler, or they just can't afford to upgrade the house to the standard they say, so that they can then come and do other things or take things away, and you just say, look, no, arrest me then. If that's what you're going to do, arrest me. They haven't got enough prisons.
The prisons are already full. They're already full.
You
and don't forget, prisons are a business.
Exactly. Yes. Well, they'll build more and shove you in it then. But if you run out of people to pay for it, then they haven't got any money.
Well, and this is essentially what we have to do is when I say turn away from darkness, we have to stop buying into it.
Yes.
So actually, there's a lot of courses and a lot of beautiful people. Sovereign Pete's one of them. Chris Coverdale, you've had on your show, many others who are teaching people how to challenge the legal authorities, and they have no dominion over you. They have no authority over you. Stand in your power. Tell them as it is. I am not paying towards a criminal construct anymore, because that makes me aiding and abetting.
Exactly.
When you pay your council tax nowadays, that's what you're doing. And you don't know where it's going. It goes to a central pot. It doesn't go to the councils initially. It goes into a central pot and then it's divvied out. But a lot of what you're paying is going to bombing innocent civilians all over the planet.
So you mentioned that you've got solutions. Should we go through some of the solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So um, whenever you're in any struggle or peril, always come back to the serenity prayer. And I've written it down because I can never get it right, even though it's just one of
Yeah.
those things. So God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So when again, it comes back to this knowing what is right. It is innate and you feel it. You have to come back to that. That's the biggest solution that works for everyone. Now, the tools are different for everyone. Everyone has a unique gift or talent or offering for the world, the reason they came here to be, their raison d'etre. You just have to allow those beings to discover it with ease and grace and flow, yet very tricky because you'll get pulled in so many different directions, even when you're strategizing how you're learning to be the best you can be. We've touched on it, but really come back to nature.
So just picking up on that, you see, I mean, and we spoke about this just briefly before we started recording. Here's me. People keep saying to me, Richard, you know, you're doing a sterling job. You're getting the message out. You're questioning. You're getting guests on who've got some amazing perspectives and stuff. And I say, yeah, no, that's really good. I feel this is a calling. The irony, of course, is for the last 5.5 years, before I started this bit of what I'm doing, I was walking out in nature and bringing nature to people through the pandemic. I was outside when nobody else would go outside because they just felt threatened by the powers that be, and I was going out there going, sod that, I'm going to go out and go for walks. But even before that, I was doing my heritage landscape and nature in woodlands, in beautiful outdoor locations, talking about all sorts of stuff, with few viewers compared to what I have now. Now that I've sort of feel that this is my calling and it's a duty to do this and I'm enjoying doing it and I'm learning, I'm stuck here between all these LED lights in a studio inside with EMF radiation coming all around, and I think to myself, this isn't what I really want. However, it's so important. To the point now I'm thinking, actually though, the technology would give me the ability to have a laptop with a little camera and a little dongle, or on my phone, use the phone signal, hopefully, go in my van, get out in nature and sit in some woodland and have this conversation with you or whomever in a wood and enjoy it, and you know, just set it up and do it that way. And
I think you've just answered your own question.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
so when you said just now, you know, that you get pulled this way and that and you're trying to find the right thing, the nuances might be that you haven't seen an opportunity to do what you need to do, but still do it in a safe and effective way.
Beautiful. And we did it there with you just talking it through and me listening and allowing you the space and grace to come
Yes.
to your own answer.
But I must give you the space and grace now because you're the one being interviewed. So back to you, sir.
It totally is just it's a back and forth in any we are together forever. We're either in peace or in conflict.
Yes.
I know what I prefer.
Yes.
And that's again,
Absolutely.
this is another solution: is choose what is preferable. So when you take time to work through all of the things, if it works for you to speak it out loud, as Richard just did, do that. If it works for you to sit by a tree and hug the tree or sit in silence, do that. There are a myriad of ways that work for different people of different ways of learning. You know, everyone's different. So there's no one size fits all thing for any of these solutions. But that in itself is beautiful because that's what makes all of this so interesting, surely, is that
Yes.
there's just so many ways to tap into magic. And when I say magic, you know, it's not like Paul Daniels. Oh, that's magic! Like it, just a little. I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true, you know, in terms of synchronicity. And when You have those light bulb moments, epiphanies, and things like that. That is the spark of creation within you.
Yes.
And
No, I totally get it.
and okay, if I may, there's something I learned from a beautiful indigenous tribe, and that's I'll try and do this justice, and that is, so everything starts in the gut, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're faced with something in life that you have to make a choice, and the gut will feel it first, and if it feels unsafe, then as you go up around, wait, let me get this right. Yeah, up around to the heart here, the heart will also say, doesn't feel great. You go to the left-hand side of the brain up here, and it's logically trying to rationalize the way to work out whether or how to either move away from that decision, or move away from that that doesn't feel safe. And then over to the right-hand side of the brain, which is creation and art and magic, which will then say, how can I beautify this? How can I make it joyful? And if that's still not feeling safe, it comes back down to the heart, and the heart will affirm or say, no, that doesn't feel good. At which point, if you're still enough, then you say, you recognize, okay, it doesn't feel good, I'm not going to do it. Then you'll be faced with the next thing, and it'll come back to the gut. And so what it is it's a figure of 8. Always
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
through the 3 brains, your heart, your mind, and your soul, which is in the gut. All the messy stuff is in the gut as well, you know? Most of the people in the Western world, at least, not indigenous people, they don't suffer with this at all because they eat very naturally. But most people in the Western world, at least at this point in time, have incredible gut issues because we're not following our gut.
No. And it doesn't help that, of course, a lot of our food has been, or what we think of food, I should say that, is highly processed, full of all sorts of weird chemicals, and we're so disconnected from our local, or farms aren't even doing it so much these days, although I think the huge movement now is to bring that back, thank goodness. People are disconnected from proper food.
Absolutely. And there's another solution, and it all comes back to the self. It's not something out there. It's the best thing you can do for the planet is work on the self. And that is remove yourself from judgment, remove yourself from fear, turn away from darkness, plant seeds of goodness in your heart, sing, dance, be joyful, be playful, reconnect with your inner child, make friends with your body, be great to your body because it is the greatest instrument you will ever own. Mm-hmm. It is a miraculous piece of work, and no one has even got close to understanding just what goes on in moments too small to measure with what our cells are doing in our body all of the time. And, if you're out doing some exercise, repeat mantras, repeat affirmations, do things like, all my little cells are happy and well. I'm so glad. I'm so happy. All my little cells are happy and well. And repeat it, because your body doesn't know the difference between an I am. So, for example, in our English language, we say, I am hungry. Your body hears that that's your state of being. It doesn't know the difference in the words. It just hears the affirmation, I am hungry, which makes it go to work like in a way that it doesn't need to.
No.
In Spanish or in French, they say, in Spanish, it's tengo hambre. I have hunger, which is better because it's temporary, not permanent fixture.
Yes. Oh, I see. Yeah, no, I see what you mean there. I am hungry is a sort of a long... there's no time limit to it. Whereas I have hunger, it's kind of immediate now. I might not be hungry in 5 minutes.
Exactly. And this is, so another solution is be very careful of the words that you say to yourself. Very careful of the monkey mind. Don't allow negative speak. Catch yourself. And it's okay that you do it because we all do it. And we all have moments where it's stressful and we're like, oh, this is so painful. But
And where I live is very close to a supermarket, and all the time I hear parents say to the kids, "Oh, we can't afford this, or we can't afford that," and you hear them putting themselves into a cycle of pauperism, because they can, and the child is learning that their family are poor, and they could turn that round and say, well, we don't need that because we're so rich, we've got the beautiful sun, the fresh air, we're going to have some water. You could turn it round and not keep that negative state.
think about it in terms of what you're inviting, right? When you say, "Oh, the world is so rich of wind and sun and rain and it doesn't matter what the state of the weather is, it's glorious. I'm awake. I am leaping off my bed for the new day."
Yes.
All right, and you set your day up from
Absolutely.
the beginning.
Yeah, I mean that, and the whole sort of 9 to 5, people can get very got to get up to, and already they've set themselves up to fail.
Yeah, and they'll say, "I hate my job." So there are, even if there's something in that job that they're maybe supposed to be doing that could make that world better, they're not allowing themselves to think that way.
No, they're not saying, hey, this is a great challenge, I'm going to make a difference.
Exactly.
This doesn't work for most of us, so let's see how we can make it better.
Yeah.
And the boss may well be up for it, because if everyone's happy and they're working harder and they don't consider it work anymore, he's happy, they're
Absolutely.
happy.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Well, and so also when kids are coming at, so for the younger generations listening, when you're coming out of school,
I don't have any young people listening.
I hope, well, we need to reach them.
Yes, no, I'm being flippant, but I have met my audience in person.
Well, I'm still relatively young, but
You are.
But for the younger generations, it is really important. When you go to a job interview, if you have to lie to get a job, then it may not be the right. This is what I recognized when I left school was, the first job interview I ever went to was, actually, I'm not telling the truth, am I? Like, why do you want to work for us? And the real truth was very simple. I needed the money to put food on the table, right? But what was I going to say? That wouldn't get me the job. I had to lie. I had to say, because I love your company. It was Tesco's or something. I don't know.
Yes. Well, and you can imagine the people that are sitting there and they're saying, well, why would you like to work for us? Oh, I'm passionate about convenience stores. I'm absolutely. And you hear people use this phrase and you go, yeah, who's passionate? I mean, genuinely passionate about a convenience store, a big brand convenience store that has ousted the small independent family-run businesses in which you are really just who's really passionate about. And if you are passionate about that, you're probably a psychopath, and we probably don't actually want you working here, because you're not really going to engage with the people that come in, the real genuine people who just come for a bottle of milk or whatever.
And this is, again, it's everything that we put ourselves to, we put ourselves through. So dream a brilliant dream. You remember Rick Mayall? I don't know if you ever saw a little, he was like an honorary doctorate at some university. I think it was Exeter University. And he said, so live a, I won't say it, but
thank you,
good life.
Yes.
And he was full of life, that man. He actually did a film in 2014 called One by One, which is, it's hard to find, but when you do find it, watch it, because it's
I've seen the excerpt in which seems to have contributed to his demise, I believe.
I would imagine so, yeah, because he had more than a small following of people, and people who would pretty much do anything that he suggested and follow what he said as gospel. So him starting to put that information out there was dangerous to the status quo.
Yes.
Now we are verging onto territory I don't really want to go into, because we all know that there's something that doesn't feel right. That's where we can leave that. Getting back to it, and I think we were right on the verge there of getting to the real, the pinnacle of what we can achieve, and that is by imploring the self, honoring the self, loving thyself, and knowing that you were you were the sperm out of 500 million that penetrated the egg. You're already a winner. And you're special, you're unique, you're beautiful in every single way that matters. Everything in this fake facade of reality, the billboards with airbrushed women and so on and so, it's nonsense. It doesn't exist. And you don't need to look like that. In fact, if someone is saying they love you just because you look like that, then they don't know who you are. They don't love you. They're superficially enamored with you.
Yes.
Lusting over you. And this is another thing is, you know, I don't want to go all religious on everyone, but we're not here to give ourselves away. Sex is an incredibly sacred thing. It creates life. So having one night stands and that energy that is exchanged between two people, if you're having sex with someone who's a drug addict, you're going to feel the urge to have a drug in the morning. I guarantee it. I've been there. And
I can't say I have been there, I have to say. I've had a sheltered life.
Well, I haven't. I've put myself, you know, not having said we're not here to give ourselves away. I've put myself out there and I've lived very well, like everything in moderation, including moderation itself, from time to time. And I've done well at surviving. And a lot of people who know me know that I must be here to say something because most people would be dead with the life experience I've said to people, you know, that I've gone through. But this is the other thing is remember that you're not a victim. There's an unholy triangle at work. On one side of it, you've got the victim. On the other side of it, you've got the perpetrator. And at the top of it, you've got the rescuer or the savior complex. You can't rescue or save anyone. God's got all of us. Whatever God is, you know, I'm not saying it's some guy with white beard in the sky or religious in a religious context, but spirit.
He's never got a ginger beard, has he? They always say he's a, you know, they always say that is that you're not this guy with a white. And I always think to myself, well, why couldn't he have a ginger beard? Poor bugger up there going, I don't know, I fancy having a ginger one today.
Yeah, he'd probably interchange.
Yes, that's it. It's fake anyway. It's a fake beard. It's probably got a whole load on a different peg. You know, what is it today? Monday. It's Ginger Day.
So it is up to us. Each
yes.
soul innately, the solutions are embedded within us, but we have to listen to our true selves.
So how do people do that? Because I think that's one thing that people find, you know, if you can do it, you can do it, obviously. But some people find it difficult, I think. And I've been one at one stage in my life trying to work out who am I? What is my true, you know, am I, because I've been in the entertainment business for a long time, I was very much aware that you had a bit of an ego. You know, you had to have, your ego was selling you. Hello and welcome to, and here's another exciting episode of, and all of that. And because now I've dropped all of that because it's just me and the guest or me coming up with, although there is a little sense of performance because you want to keep people engaged. But how do you find the you know, that you are, and how do you tune into that?
Well, you just mentioned ego. So one of the things about ego is that it's a great thing. It's not something you want to dissolve completely. You do want to have it under control because it's a very trickstery entity. It's really there to protect you from positions where you don't feel safe in your life. So when you're nervous about something, when you're frightened about something or fearful about anything, your ego will kick in to protect you from the feeling of nervousness or frightenedness or, you know, those sort of things. And what you can do is you've got to tune into your feelings. You notice when those things arise and become the observer of your own. You know, I am the observer of Rob Babaloo Joy. I'm the observer of that entity. Rob Babaloo Joy is not who I am. I'm behind the screen. Decisions I make, you know, I used to have a really hard time with the idea of hindsight. They would say, with the benefit of hindsight. I was like, it's not a benefit because it's too bloody late.
Yeah, it's gone now.
but but actually, you know, again, that's why I would say I don't have regrets. There's no point. You know, every step I've taken has got me to where I am now. So forgive the self is a
Yes.
huge thing. You know, when you know your ego's been out of check, when you know that really, and when I was talking about ego, so vulnerability is something that we've all been told is a weakness.
Mm.
But actually, I've touched on this earlier, but please be your true self as much as possible. You know who that is. I can't teach that.
No.
You only know who you are, right? And the ways to tap into it, as we've touched on as well, are a myriad of things that work differently for different people. Meditation of all different kinds. You can do walking meditation, silent, still meditation. You can go on a Vipassana course, 10-day silent retreats. You can go and do yoga. You can go and, but it's always about working on the self and putting yourself in positions which aren't that comfortable. If you just sit on the couch, I'm sorry to tell you that nothing will change. Yet everything is changing around you and it will put you in a fearful, frightful state. You've got to get up and do something. That's what you're here to do. As uncomfortable as it feels, as uncomfortable as it sounds, the best thing you can do for yourself and for everybody else is to work on yourself and be honest with yourself. When you say you're going to do something, do it. If you're not going to do it, don't say you're going to do it because you're only sort of letting yourself down. So be very, very aware of what it is that you want to envision going forward in your life. Don't spend too much time like trying to attain a millionaire status. Yes, we can all be millionaires or abundant or any other word that you want to describe financially wealthy, but essentially it's crawl. Learn to crawl before you walk, before you run. And if we go back to the children, you know, it's an astonishing rate at which they develop. We still have that capability, but in order to get back to that, it's like Yoda said in Star Wars, you have to unlearn the things you learned, and there is no try. There's do or do not. And learn what is for you and learn what is not, and stop choosing what is not.
Yes, I suppose a lot of people don't quite know. I mean, you know, when you start out, you don't know, and life is a an experience that you are there to find. You know, I mean, here am I. I'm 60 now, and suddenly I feel I'm on the right path. And it's taken 60 bloody years, and I've not that I regret any of it, because all the things I've done, even though I've had lots of hardship in my life in various forms.
We all do. We all do.
And yes, and of course I'm not saying that, you know, I've had hardship so everyone should feel sorry for me. No, but the point, what I'm trying to say is that each of those have taught me something, and actually now with that experience behind me, I feel ready to get on the charger and start getting my phone up to charge. No, the charger of the horse charger, and get on with it. Which I feel I'm doing with this show, bunging out all the content, even if I am underneath the LED lights. And
you just reminded me of something actually, and this is an analogy for, you know, we put our phones on charge, right? Don't we? Every day.
Yes.
Charge them up. Battery gets full. What about ourselves? Do we give ourselves time to charge up? And one way of doing that is for everyone, because the earth, what you might call Gaia, or our mother, our collective mother, is an unconditionally loving being that energizes us. So get your friggin' shoes off and get on the ground. That's
do a bit of
charge
earthing.
point. That's your charge point. Yeah. It's astonishing, actually. The science.
And kids do it naturally, don't they? They just run around barefooted, charging themselves up, getting rid of those positive ions and you know, balancing it out.
You got it. You got it. That's exactly what it does for us. And it's free and it's glory. I mean, the feeling of getting your feet on the earth. I'm blessed enough to have just got back from South Wales, an absolutely glorious area of the world, which I highly recommend everyone to go and explore. Pembrokeshire coastlines and
Oh, it's beautiful down there.
waterfalls and absolutely astonishing, and just feel so blessed to have had that experience last week. And you spend a little bit of time in nature, get outside your comfort zone, and it will make you feel better, even if in the beginning of that you're not comfortable doing it.
Yes.
Will orientate. That's the other thing. We're incredibly adaptive, so trust in your own ability to adapt to the circumstances you're in. Regarding like rigid solutions, well, first thing is, turn off the idea of anyone fixing anything for you. So turn off the Black Mirror devices with politicians and stuff. Politics, many ticks, parasitical creatures. They're not going to help you. Turn that off, get out into nature, be absolutely truthful with yourself. That's where it starts. And you will find then that you attract what you need to grow in terms of the people that will help you, who see you and love you for who you are, the animals that might come and be by your side for a little while to help you to learn more responsibility, and magic, because they're full of that. Especially goats. We had pygmy goats in Wales, and they're just comical creatures. I could have watched them for years.
I'm gonna have to look that up now. Pygmy goats.
Amazing. Just so funny. Anyways, that's really it. And we could go on and on and on. I'd love to come back at some point whenever you're happy to have me on. I just want to encourage people to remember.
I've just got to show. I'm sorry, I have got to show what a pygmy goat looks like, because it's suddenly just quite hilarious. I guess this is. Look at those little.
Oh, so cute. Amazing, aren't they?
Oh, I'll just have a close up there if we can get one. There we go.
Oh my goodness.
Pygmy goats, marvelous stuff. Sorry about that, Rob.
No worries.
You mentioned it, and a little bit of playing on the show. We kind of run out of time, but where can people find you and follow more of your inspirational thoughts?
Right. Well, so actually, thank you for reminding me of that. I would have totally forgotten to.
Well, it's part of my job to make sure that people know, because they'll only go, Richard, you forgot to put a link in the description. Sorry about it.
Okay. Well, so I actually this year, after sort of the lull that many of us had through COVID and wondering like, how am I going to navigate the next portion of my life?
Yes.
And I've started to, with the help of beautiful tribe, because I'm being who I am, and they're seeing me and helping me and supporting me in every way they can, and I'm so grateful to all of you. Know who you are. But the Grounding Garden Gathering events, and they're on sort of periodically at the moment, every 3 months. Obviously this last one on the 24th of September this month will be the last one outside, because
the grounding is that a web page people can go to?
It will be at the moment. If you don't mind at the end of this interview to share the promotional video, you can just add it onto the end of the interview, and I will send you a bunch of links to other people who are doing amazing things that everyone can check out. One of which is called Togetherland, which is becoming essentially the author of your own life, and creating the living story. The story that never ends, the never ending story, if you like, and that is, what do you want to leave as a legacy, like to live your life the best possible way, and be your own movie maker, be your own author, be your own explorer, be your own savior. It's all you, and
it's all you.
It is. And well, so one other thing that you can find me on my YouTube channel is Dragonfly Pictures. I've got a lot of presentations on there from Stroud, where you've been, Richard, with people like Chris Coverdale and People's Lawyer David Edelman and many others that you've had on your show. And there's some amazing presentations on there, as well as, please, anyone who resonates or is feeling quite aligned to what I'm saying, I need support, and I'm throwing it out there. This is how, if you don't ask, you don't get. So please do support me. If you think that that a series of films about this process that we're all in together. We're not all in the same boat. I don't like that phrase because there are many different size boats and so on. But
and I've only got a coracle, so
but
tough.
we definitely can make it better together. And the series of films I want to make are called The Blossoming, and it's this process of remembering. It's a process from dark to light. It's a process of true regenerating the environment when we regenerate from the inside out. The root of the word education is educar, and it means to draw out from within, not to stuff in from the outside, which is what has happened to us all.
Yes.
Forgive ourselves, forgive each and every one, including the bad actors, Bill Gates, etc., etc. You have to, because they're all a reflection of us and what we gave away inside of ourselves. Love you all. Thank you so very much for being
Thank
on
you,
the
Rob.
planet at this time. Trust in yourselves, believe in yourselves, honor yourselves, and empower others. Uplift everyone. That's all we need to do.
So thank you so much, Rob. I'll be back with more emails. I'll be back with more video, more guests and monologues and all the usual nonsense that I do. Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights. In the meantime, from Rob and I, thanks for watching and goodbye.